So Vincenzo Pugliati is running, why are you pointing to each other? Nobody wants to speak. So Vincenzo is running, is the chairman of IT Synergy, which is an SME in Egypt, which is dealing with setting up clouds. So they have their own cloud, and they have also building up a cloud for the government-sponsored research and education. So, a couple of words from Enzo.
Thank you. So our task is to wrap up the sessions we had and take some conclusion, bring them into the cloud arena. This morning we had wonderful presentations about network, and we all agree that networks are vital for us, but of course contents and services running through those networks are really what makes them worth. And so we can say that the network is as valuable as the data it carries, no matter how slow or fast it is. I think our job working for emerging countries especially is to build local traffic, because if we have local traffic, it means that we have local contents and local services, and we are not only user of services and content generated by others. Of course, local content, especially in the Arab world, is a hard task, but is being taken care of slowly. We can focus on services. And if we focus on services, I think we can certainly say that cloud is the best way to deliver services. And I mean, for sure is a technology that is emerging in our countries, but is there to stay. So we have to invest some effort. The other important issue is that cloud, it has been there for some time on the cyberspace, but slowly is moving from the cyberspace to our data center. And this is what really makes the difference. This generates local or horizontal traffic. That is what is missing when we think about building local loops, for instance. Because plenty of traffic is going north from south north, or actually vice versa, but we do want to build horizontal traffic too. And the other important thing is that while cloud in the cyberspace is very important, but it's just a commodity, once you build it, you bring it into your data center, things change dramatically, because you are the one and your team is the one that is building value added. So it has to have its hands-on on the technology and customize it properly according to your need, the need of your organization. Therefore, we have to master the technology. And master the technology doesn't mean we have seen, we all know how powerful cloud is in providing you infrastructure as a service. But this is the easiest part and probably the less important. Actually, cloud is quite the opposite. I mean, it's an entire ecosystem. And so it's not a matter of replacing a bare metal server with virtual machine, but it's providing valuable services through the cloud infrastructure and make it interoperable, as we have seen, can build great synergies among our organizations. Of course, moving from a commodity to local infrastructure, it's a hard task. Everything is in our hands, but it can be done. It's not a job just for big organizations or large corporations. I think the reason why we are here, being a small company, and SMEs operating in Egypt, is a good example. We started working on cloud a couple of years ago. We chose to be a member of the OpenStack consortium. And after less than 1 year, we have been asked by Docomo Innovation, which is a branch of the mobile operator, Japanese mobile operator owned by Entity Data, to support development, the software development of their cloud, because they were using the same type of CMS we are, which is Drupal, and they needed to make some complex interaction using API. And we were there. Not many companies are working on this. Being in Egypt, our manpower is much, much cheaper than their cost in California, and we have been able to do the job. In the same way, we won recently a tender for implementing 2 large cloud infrastructure in Egypt, and we competed and we won against IBM. 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I was in Cairo for the inauguration of Cairo ICT. There was a friend, a colleague, who made a question to our managing director, and he asked to her, who is your competitor? And she replied, EMC Square. And the guy was looking at her and laughing. Well, how you can say that EMC is your competitor? You are the smallest SME, and they are a huge multinational. But this is the reality. I mean, they may be very strong abroad, but they are not as strong as us here in Egypt or there in Egypt, because we have local expertise. We have experience that it's something they don't have, and it will take time for them to build local expertise. So it's an interesting, it's a very interesting moment, and it shows how a small company with local know-how, local expertise can compete with the sacred monsters. Why? Because we are dealing with innovation that require local know-how and local support. And this is something we all live and we can all provide in our own countries, in our own environments. Here I have to say that the academic and research sector, they have a major task, because they should lead the wave and bring the results of this work to the industry, to the local sector, to the private sector, and not vice versa. I mean, not to wait for vendors to knock their door, because when they will knock your door, bringing their solution, I mean, it's going to be too late, and probably what they will offer to you not necessarily fit your needs, your real needs, or the needs of your stakeholders. So you have to build your own agenda. Don't just follow the trend, don't be late, don't follow what the established industry is suggesting, and be aware of their presence. In my experience, corporate philanthropy is very hard to find. You all get frequently donations, but with a few exceptions, there are some strings attached. Being a company and being personally a supporter of open source in my career, I've seen it many times. And I can see that now Bill Gates is doing a good job as a philanthropist, because he's not offering, he's working on malaria, on supporting Africa in eradicating malaria, and certainly he's not using antivirus. I mean, he's working with something, some good medical stuff that has nothing to do with his company and will not bring any direct benefit to his company. While Microsoft giving out Office for free in school, or IBM giving out mainframes 25 years ago, as we were discussing before, I mean, at the end, it's going to benefit somebody else, and not who is receiving the donation. So my advice, and I think I shared with many of you, is that we should look for niche areas where we can avoid confrontation, we can have a space. Issues, as Karim mentioned, open source hardware, it's a very interesting example. People may fight and discuss and argue with you about the choice of an open source database versus a well-known and established proprietary one, but nobody will argue if you decide to buy for your student or for your people Arduino or Raspberry Pi hardware to be used in your lab. And the educational impact and the developmental impact, I can tell you, is much bigger. The other conclusion I will draw is that we have to start early if we want to be there on time. So the earlier we jump in, the better it's going to be. And I'm not only thinking about cloud, but the SDN, which we have heard several times today, software-defined network. It's a very important area. We should join on time. And don't wait for Cisco to come or give as a present to you their latest industry standard, which is great. It's normally very expensive. You may even get it for free, but then if somebody has to buy it, they will pay a fortune for it. Start playing with the Open vSwitch, which is cheap, is open source. Maybe it's a bit hard to start implementing, but it will lead you to a sound and sustainable developmental process. So we have to, as a conclusion, we have to build capacity, and we build capacity by training, and making experience. And when we think that these issues are too big for us, it comes to my mind the usual Goliath versus David. And certainly Goliath had lots of resources, muscles and weapons, but David had the right tool, simple sling, and he was smart enough to use it at the right time. So I think this is what we should be looking at, not wait and try to get the same muscles Goliath has, but be realistic, understand our strength and limitation, and of course rely and focus on our strength. And I'm sure we can all be David in this case and succeed in our fields. So these are my conclusions. I hope we will close the session with a bit of debate. I hope we all have raised some issues that will generate questions. And now it's time to start.
So you allow me?
Yes, the chairman allows you. Everybody knows you are.
Okay. Okay. So, I would like to give our perspective from the Arab States Research Education Network on the cloud infrastructure. And I think the discussions or this session about cloud roundtable discussion was motivated through online communication between myself, Roberto, Ognen, and Enzo. And so we thought that this is a session that not only just for the audience, but also for ourselves, that we can come up with like a plan or maybe a roadmap that we can work together, not for the benefit of us, but for the benefit of the region, for the Arab States Research and Education Network, to help support the communities that we are serving. But I just want to elaborate and say a few words about my experience with the cloud, and this maybe can motivate the discussions that I and Enzo and Ognen and our team and the Chain Reds to move forward. I still remember when I was in my first years in the university, when I was doing some research, and we were dealing with agent-based systems where we had to build some adaptive agents. And at the university, we only had personal computers to use to be able to run this sophisticated software. And we used to, myself and a number of my colleagues and some students, we built like agent systems. Each of that is just a software entity that runs on a number of them that need to cooperate and collaborate and make some kind of communication. But it's very complicated to run such a software on a personal computer. And we submitted a proposal, and we got a grant, and the grant is to buy a server, like a quad a processor system with, I remember it was about 1 gig memory. So just to cut the story short, we thought we're not going to wait for the server to come, and so we began to think about using cooperative scheduling on the PC, because the personal computer is about it. Maybe it uses sometimes if it is a stand, it's not working. So sometimes you can use this CPU time to run some other applications. So we began to think about, let's use the number of personal computers which exist in our department, and let's try to run some of our software based on this distributed configuration. We were successful a little bit, but we thought along the way, and we had some cooperation with some funding from the Ministry of ICT, and we got some grants to buy this Sun Microsystems hardware that we can build a server and everything. And so the whole idea of Sun Microsystems at that time is the computer is the network, which means that you can use the network, you can use the resources on the network that you can use for some of your applications. And one of the conferences I attended for Sun Microsystems, it was in San Francisco in 2004, and they were talking about the applications as a service. But then things evolved, and we began to hear about the cloud computing and what is the cloud computing. And in the first ChainRed's review, I was in Greece with Ognen, and he showed me very interesting installation of how the cloud infrastructure that he just mentioned briefly about. And it was very exciting to me. This is really great for universities, for students, for faculty members. And 2 days after I returned, our chairman, Dr. Talal Abu Ghazali, he was mentioning, we need to work on cloud computing because this is something that people are doing all over the world. And he asked me to do a presentation. I was so lucky that, I met with Ognen and saw the whole infrastructure of a cloud, and I made a presentation. It was very successful, and he said, oh, this is a great idea, let's move with it. And after a year, Tag Cloud came into a picture, and they are installing Tag private cloud in Cairo. And one of the issues that they had is about the network, because there's a bottleneck. If you really want to make use of the resources that are on the cloud, you have to have a very good network. And so that's the time when Roberto introduced me to Enzo, and we began the discussion. And Tag Group team, they met with Enzo. Enzo was not very happy with the discussions because those are people who just understand the technical language. They have been working in Microsoft technologies, they have been working in Oracle technologies, and to them, OpenStack, cloud, open source, and all those kind of things were not really something that they favor. And afterwards, I talked to him, and we agreed that let's do some kind of a survey. And the survey came out of ChainRed's project that we want to work together for the survey so that we can understand what is it really as a cloud initiatives from the supply side and also from the demand side. And so now the survey is out, and Ognen, he mentioned about the survey, and now we have a number of people who are supporting us in the Arab region to follow up with the supply side, with the demand side, to try to fill the information. And our plan, and we discussed this in our Chain PMP meeting, that we want to come up with a status report on the cloud infrastructures in the Arab region. And so the whole idea here is we want to understand how people think about cloud, what is their demand, what is their perspective from a government side, from the organizations, from universities, from research institutions, from even companies. Companies that they're making lots of money for the cloud. And so what are the standards? What are the issues? What are the kind of things that people really feel about the cloud infrastructure? And so we want to come up with a cloud report that we want to publish, as we did for the e-infrastructure status report in the Arab region last year. And our plan is something like June or July. And we want to hold a conference, and my colleagues in ChainReds, they agreed that they want to contribute. And this workshop will be dedicated for cloud infrastructure. And we will launch and we publish this cloud infrastructure. Now, one of the ideas that I had always is, because I worked in universities, and is people are in our region very much oriented towards the proprietary software. It's not about making use of software which is available that you can download, you can play, you can build modules and you can add to it. And so about 3 years ago, we started with some discussions with a number of partners from Europe that we want to bring together a project that builds communities of a practice on open source, so that universities produce graduates who have the right knowledge on how to install open source software. And luckily that we had funds from the European Commission, and my colleague, Nadine, she left, she's not here today. She made a presentation the day before in Chain Reds, and the idea, we want to work together with partners from Europe, with partners from our region, that we want to build communities of practice. Universities try to adapt their curricula so that they include in their programs, courses that focus and motivate students to build open source technologies. And cloud is what we think could be a proper platform that we can use for the kind of technology centers that can bring faculty members, students, access those resources. And I think this is what I see as complementing each other. Sorry. Too long?
Yes, so thank you all for the contributions. We have still, Yusuf, how many minutes do you give us? 15? So let's have another quarter of questions. Okay.
I have a couple of issues, just picking up from what Salim mentioned. When we discussed about the questionnaire about cloud, I remembered that a long time ago, I find some parallel between internet and cloud, in the sense that they are two disruptive technology that are not necessarily well understood. They were not understood in the case of the internet, and still in the case of cloud, there is quite a bit of lack of awareness and clarity. Because if you ask 10 people what they think is cloud, you will probably receive 10 different answers. And this is the first issue we need to work on. It's first question in our survey. Yes. Yeah. So awareness is extremely important. I mean, I spend most of my time talking to CEOs of companies, trying to have them to generate awareness about the potential that cloud may have in their business, because they've all heard about cloud, they read on all magazines, business magazine and so on about cloud, but what is this exactly? For somebody, cloud is the internet, for somebody cloud is where you store the picture of your iPhone. So this is the first issue. So at the time, in the old time of the internet, when we will send out a questionnaire asking people, what do you think about the internet? Do you need the internet in your organization? And what you will do with it? I mean, answers were very funny. I personally have an experience where I went into a country. I was working with the UN at the time, with UNDP. I went to Costa Rica because my job was to bring internet in Latin American countries. Or building, let's say, preparing the environment, let's say. And after this mission, the UN representative called me. At that time, he was an Italian guy, and he told me, what you did last time while you were in the country? I said, as usual, I met with people from the university, from a couple of NGOs, because we are trying to build critical mass for the internet. So, the Minister of Science and Technology called me and he told me that he doesn't want you to go again to Costa Rica, bring this stupid technology they don't need. And this is, I mean, he was the Minister of Science and Technology, and this was his thinking, because he thought, he was convinced, by the way, he just received a donation of a IBM 36 something that was running SNA, so I mean, having somebody spreading the word about TCP/IP was not something good. So it's, I mean, awareness is the first issue, and second, touching the issue of open source. Open source by itself is a major issue, but open source on the cloud is a major revolution, because the main barrier we had with the adoption of open source is lack of local know-how. Open source means using Linux operating system in most cases, and people in the region, they don't know Linux because they don't get enough training in the university. They know Windows. So it's very difficult, and maybe for the database it's the same thing. So it's very difficult to build an application, no matter how good is it, if you don't have local expertise, it's obvious. But if you are running it on the cloud, it does matter. I mean, you are provisioning an application that includes operating system, database, whatever else, and you don't care if it's Linux, if it's Office, if it's the database is MySQL, the language is PHP or .NET or whatever. You just push a button and you start using the application. The same thing with our mobiles. So this is a major issue. I mean, this can really bring open source into the offices, in everybody's office, and into every area. Look at Amazon. 98% of images available in Amazon, they are open source. Why? Because it's easier, of course. I mean, and you can run it and you can start without paying any license. So I think these are a couple of issues that we can bring in and could eventually make the difference.
Yes, definitely.
So I fully agree about the importance of open source deployed on the cloud and made easily accessible. There is an idea that is underneath what you have just said, is the fact that the cloud is not just a technology, it's also an ecosystem where people can produce artifacts for others to reuse them. When someone prepares a virtual machine for a particular course or particular type of research and creates an image and makes that image public, that means anywhere, anyone on the globe having the same needs can go and grab that image, and without spending days preparing the same thing, can reuse what has been built. So that's an argument in favor of the public cloud against the private cloud. To my opinion, what is most important about the cloud is really the public cloud, because it's not just the technology. It's also ease of use. It's also an economic model that really works. I think after years and years of investment in e-infrastructure, to my opinion, and it's just my opinion, the dust has settled, and we should recognize today that the grid paradigm as a way to federate infrastructures was not the appropriate paradigm. It didn't work the way people thought it would work. The second point is about having educational and research institutions take care of clusters and IT administration and services. To my opinion, the core business, if I may say, of these institutions is to deliver high-quality education and high-quality research, and to train researchers and to train people. It's not the strength, it's not the duty, actually, to become IT providers. Today, since we have a public offer where people can go and grab anything, IT became available as a service and for very cheap. Providers like Amazon could deliver hundreds of thousands of machines of any kind, of any operating system, and the cost of some of these machines that could be used for education can be as low as 2 cents per hour. 2 cents per hour for running a machine equivalent to your laptop on the cloud. Nobody can build a small infrastructure that is cost effective to the extent that a core would cost that cheap. So basically, to advocate the public cloud against the private cloud that could be used in very specific cases when the data is sensitive, when the agreement you have with the funding body doesn't allow you to put the data anywhere. In very, very limited with these very limited use cases, the public cloud could be not an option. But in the vast majority of the use cases academia has to deal with, I think the public cloud is the most appropriate. Without having any personal interest in Amazon or Microsoft Azure or whatever, it is kind of obvious that today the most mature cloud offer is Amazon. They are kind of shaping the playground, and they are actually creating de facto standards. People today really should experiment the cloud with private clouds in order to have a kind of local playground. But they should keep in mind that the real cost effectiveness from technology and economic point of view are really in the public cloud, and that experimentation with Amazon should happen quickly, because it is a huge potential for education and it's reshaping everything. In connection to clouds, there is also this kind of trend that is getting more and more importance, which is remote education, and portals like Coursera for online courses are getting such popularity. People are coming to those places to learn, and these people can be anywhere on Earth. Those platforms will become even more effective the day they will connect to the cloud better, so that people can grab, while having the course, any capabilities, any services, and get them used while they are getting that course and getting that training. So.
Yeah, so here's an opinion that the paying Amazon, the research and education institutions paying Amazon so that they can actually get the knowledge out of the cloud. Whereas we had another opinion here just next to us about how you can actually keep the know-how for development of the open source cloud platforms, but also the VM configurations and so on locally, and keep the know-how and have the people who are locally trained, and not having to outsource your know-how eventually to Amazon, who runs your IT platform, and pay them for that. And then you have an example of also our cloud that we built in Greece, which is built with moderate funds, and there is an open source cloud solution which is available for free for research and education community, not just in Greece, but also beyond, as I have just mentioned in my presentation. Yeah. So it is a little bit of a question of whether you want to pay the Americans to run your IT infrastructure. I'm sorry, I'm not saying it's in a negative way, but you basically give up your know-how instead of keeping it here, and you just experiment on something that you pay even 2 cents. So okay, that's just my opinion about this. Yeah. So Salim wanted to say something.
Yeah, it's just a comment on, and I think we had long discussions in Chainrad's Enzo, together with Enzo. I mean, when we say public cloud, does it mean Amazon or maybe Google or whatever it is? But we think that there has to be something local, and we want this local to be because you want to create innovation, because you want to create jobs for the people, because you want to create awareness, because you want to create people who can manage and maintain what you offer as a technology. This is on one side. And the other side is because you want to keep your data local, so you don't have to consume much network to shift or to push outside the country. As well as security issues. Sometimes you have content which is of local, demography, whatever it is. So it's a kind of a content which you like to keep inside the country. So whether it is business related, whether it is financial related, whether it is any kind of content or data that you would like to maintain and to keep local. And I think, pushing everything, what Google is doing with so many different companies, what they're doing, they're creating hubs in different regions. But creating know-how and creating technologies within the country can help you a lot in economic development and in promoting innovation within the country.
I think there is no contradiction between the two. There is no single choice, private versus public. There is a case-to-case situation. I mean, if you want to start tomorrow and you don't have anything, with 2 cents, it's a good price to pay to start. But if you are going to build capacity, if you are going to, if you want to train, yes, then there is no alternative. The cost, and by the way, sometimes the cost you have to pay, it's higher, even by using open source. People think that open source is good because it's free. It's very cheap. No. In many cases, building a good with an application with the industry strength based on open source may be even more expensive than buying an off-the-shelf product. But the difference is that in the second case, I will pay a license to a foreign company, most likely, while in the first case, I will invest on my people. At the end, I think it's a well worth investment. Private versus public, hybrid, private, corporate cloud. Let's say there are an infinite number of alternatives. There is lots of granularity. It's not either one or the other. We use of course, we use hybrid because you can build infrastructure that scale up to what you normally use, but when you have to make an experiment that requires more machine and you don't have any friend nearby where you can overflow your machines, you can rent machines from Amazon or any other provider. So, this is really, you have to be open to all alternatives. And I think it's very important to look at the experience, at existing experiences. When we started working in this field, we looked at the Nectar experience in Australia. I think it's one of the most interesting experiences in the field of research and development, where the entire country decided to build an infrastructure, make it available for all researchers, and they have done an amazing job. Finally, we are focusing on academia and research institutions, but let's not forget about government. In my experience, government, on the cloud, of course on governmental cloud, it has an amazing potential. And of course, in this case, in the post-Snowden era, there is no doubt that local cloud, no matter if it may be a public cloud, but with the local infrastructure, it's an obvious choice, but it's extremely important. What we can do by providing cloud infrastructure to the government or by the government using cloud infrastructure to deliver their services. I worked in Latin America. There is a project where the Ministry of Finance, they deliver a server to each and every organization. For them, it's like an ERP. For them to charge their data, run their processes, and then upload centrally this data. And they have to maintain 1,000, 2,000 of servers with all the headache you can imagine. The day you move those servers, keeping the same isolation and the same level of security, you move it into a governmental cloud, you make an amazing job. You make your life easier, you save really millions of dollars.
Sorry, Karim wanted to.
Yeah. So actually, I would like to add something about the fact that there is the world that we want to see, and there is the world as it is, actually. And if we look at what people are using, researchers, educators, and students, here in Tunisia, there is CCK. They have email accounts with CCKs, but most of them use their Gmail accounts. If you look at what people do in other institutions, there are probably web conferencing facilities, but they are using Skype. For data sharing and file sharing, people are using on a daily basis Dropbox. People are collaborating with Google Docs. So basically, even if we try to impose to researchers and educators and students our way of seeing things and what we think is optimal, they will use what is most convenient. And what they get out of these services, the ubiquity, the capability, and the reliability, and the cost effectiveness, these tools, most of them are cheap or free. So basically, we should really take a snapshot of what currently exists and probably try to build on top of what users expressed as being their favorite way of getting their services. So what I mean by this is there is room for all the IT services to make academia works better and more effectively. But I don't think by imposing to them these kind of constraints and certificates and local storages and local services, that's the best way to make them effective. I think we should listen to them and start from them.
Thank you for that. So now we are slightly running out of time. I would like the audience to join the conversation a little bit and maybe give us, you can see what has arisen as one of the main topics here about the public versus private clouds, although you call public clouds those that are free for you to pay to use them. But nevertheless, you have seen that this has emerged as the main topic. If there is any comments from the audience, maybe we can take some comments regarding this topic or any other topic that you would want a little bit more discussed or you have a comment about. If anybody wants to say anything. Everybody wants to have a coffee. That's good. Yes. Blank faces. Can I ask audience a question? John, Terena, is it true that you have brokered for 3 NRNs to procure cloud storage? Not you personally, but Terena. Has something like that happened? And because it fits into the story somehow, yeah?
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
And I'll say more as well. Yeah, Terena's been involved in looking at cloud strategies for the community through a couple of working groups, through TF-MSP, which is the business side of things, and also through TF Storage, which is looking at the technology. We've had something running as a pilot called the Terena Trusted Cloud Drive. And what that is a piece of software that enables users to transparently store their data encrypted in the public cloud with the metadata and the keys stored in the community. It can be back-ended by a number of technologies. Those include Rackspace, Amazon, local file store, you name it. Now, what we're trying to do now is to procure or have an agreement with public providers or public network cloud providers to back-end this experiment. And we're doing this in consultation with the people in the GN3+ project, that's SA7. Those of you who know the code numbers, SA7, which is cloud storage, so it should be available European-wide. So yes, we are doing some brokerage.
And any interactions with Helix Nebula, which is trying to get the European commercial providers into the game?
We talk quite a lot with the people in Helix Nebula. Yeah, they're certainly involved.
Thank you for the clarification, John. Okay. Any other comments or questions? If not, we can wrap up the session. It was keep the microphone.
You can take it home with me, huh? It's my gift.
It was an interesting conversation, and there is indeed the question of this public versus private provisioning, or with open clouds or clouds you would pay for, federating the resources which are available to national research and education community through national funds, federating them, and maybe having a global cloud provisioning like that, or paying for resources. It's definitely a combination of two, as we have seen in this conversation, as Enzo pointed out, maybe starting to, depending on the scale of problems, needs. But indeed, I think it's very important that in this region as well, there is a know-how which is kept locally, and there are people who are working on open source cloud solutions here, either for provisioning of clouds or for actually using them. So this would be my main point in this one. To wrap up, Salim, you can wrap up.
I just want to elaborate more on what Karim was mentioning about. I know and understand that people are driving the needs, and they are the ones who will determine the needs. But my point of view was, we have to motivate local expertise. We have to motivate people who can understand technology, work with technology. It is obvious that people who are using, some institutions and many institutions, especially in our region, that they're using the Gmail account. because their universities have not provided the proper infrastructure so that they can use their organization's email. And that's the problem. But if they have felt that their organizations are providing a very good infrastructure, there is no interruption, and technology is really well supported, I think they would not really mind having the identification in their emails by their institutions. So again, my perspective here is, we have to build the expertise in our region in terms of technologies, not only cloud, in every aspect. And the only way that you can do this is you have to motivate them, let's say with open source, because open source is, I see it an alternative to many of the proprietary softwares that are being used in many of the organizations and government institutions in our region. And the only place who can really build capacity, who can really produce savvies, technology savvies, or maybe produce people who are well equipped with the technology are universities. And that's where we would like to focus on those universities, on the faculty members, on the curricula, on the study plan, so that they can produce graduates with proper skills that can meet the demand.
Thank you, Salah. Okay, so we're free to have coffee, and thank you for coming to this session.